Hi, my name's Dan Danford. We're going to be working on a new series of podcasts for DadsDivorce where we focus on money issues. I've been managing money for folks for almost 30 years, worked with a lot of people in a lot of different situations, and have a special empathy for people going through tough divorce type situations. We're going to try to explore some different topics on different podcasts that maybe give you some ideas of some things to look for in your own situation, some things that you can do to make your situation better. The first thing we're going to talk about is a topic I call cash management. Sometimes people call it budgeting, but I think cash management's a better way to talk about it. We got a query from a viewer. The question was, finance just bores me silly. I've tried to use a budget in the past, but usually abandon it within weeks. I'm really struggling financially, and I don't know where to start. Well, let's think about that for a few minutes. One of the reasons why it's important is because cash creates flexibility. I mean, when you stop and think about it a little bit, think of your situation and how it differs when you have a refrigerator die in your home and you need to replace it. Think how the situation is different if you've got $1,000 sitting in the bank and you can go just buy it, as opposed to going someplace and seeing if you can finance it. I mean, your options are you can put it on a high-priced credit card, you can go to a store that gives you store credit. In any case, you have much less flexibility under those circumstances. And you also have an issue where you may not be able to buy it in certain places unless you have credit already arranged or something like that. So your options go way down. So what we want to talk about is how best to handle situations so that you can maybe have a cash reserve so that when those emergency situations rise, you can make the best of it. The first point I want to share with you today is that even though a lot of financial planners talk about budgeting, the truth of the matter is that when we've analyzed the way that people are successful with money, some of the most successful people in the world, people who are already millionaires, don't budget. It seems counterintuitive, but they don't sit down every month and write down everything they're going to spend and then stick to that budget every month. Alternatively, though, most of them can tell you where they spent their money. Okay, it's a different issue. With budgeting, you're figuring out in advance and then you're trying to have some kind of rigid controls on how you spend that money. But if all you do is keep track of how you're spending, that gives you more leeway. You don't have that constraint. You don't have that control issue that bothers so many people so much. So, first step that I'd say is maybe you don't need to draw up a budget that's so rigid, but perhaps it would be a good idea to track how you spend money. That way you'll know maybe at the end of 2 or 3 months that I usually spend $100 a week on groceries, or I've been spending $75 a month on gasoline, or whatever. Those kinds of ideas help you a lot. So that's the first thing. Track what you're spending your money on. Just keep track of it, and that'll guide you in the future. The second thing is to make, and this is another huge issue that people mess up with, and that's to make wise spending choices. Today's society, there are 1,000 choices for everything that you buy. A refrigerator is a good point. I mean, that's something we talked about earlier, but it makes a lot of sense. Every Sunday's newspaper carries ads for appliances. Well, it really doesn't matter once you get that refrigerator into your home where you bought it. Go find the best deal that you can, make the arrangements to get it. Hopefully you don't have to finance it, but make a wise spending choice. And it may not seem like much, but if you can save 15 or 20% on each major purchase that you make, or even your daily purchases, it adds up over time. That helps a lot. So there are a lot of opportunities there just by making good choices about how we spend the money. And that takes me to my third point that I want to talk to you about today, which I think is so critical, and that is to track your net worth on an ongoing basis. Now, the reason why this is such a powerful tool is because you can list on a piece of paper, on the left side of the paper, list everything that you own. Bank accounts, 401k plan, your car and what it's worth if you sold it today, and your house and what it's worth if it sold you today, and just go down the list of all the things that you own. And then on the right side of the paper, go down a list of all the things that you owe. Hopefully, and with a little bit of attention to it, we'd hope that the things that you own are worth more than the things that you owe. If that's the case, you can add those both up and subtract it out, and maybe your net worth today is $1,000. Okay, that's a good thing to keep track of. Go through the same exercise next month after you pay your bills. Okay, remember that when you pay a payment on your car or your house, it changes the amount of money that you owe. And hopefully the value of those assets hasn't changed very much. And if you do this on a monthly or an ongoing basis, a quarterly basis maybe, you can see that number at the bottom of the page go up over time. One of the reasons why I think this is such a powerful tool is because it helps us make wise choices. I mean, when you take $1,000 out of your bank account and you go buy a, say, brand new color TV, I'm not saying you shouldn't have a color TV, but when you track your net worth on an ongoing basis, you can see that, okay, what's that color TV worth now? When I'm teaching classes for students, I always ask them, how much does a color TV sell for at a garage sale? $50, $75. You'll see, if that's the case, that you took $1,000 out of cash on the asset side and you bought something that's now worth $75 or $100. That's an instant decline in your net worth of $900. Okay, if you do that on every major spending decision you make, it will drive you to make good decisions. Okay, so those are the 3 points. One thing is to keep track of the things that you're spending. The next thing is to make wise spending choices. And the third thing is to track your family net worth on an ongoing basis and see whether the decisions you're making are adding to or taking away from that. Last thing, most people or many people practically live in poverty in order to pay down debts. And I'm not saying that having debt's a good thing, but flexibility is a huge thing. So if you have a choice between setting payments on something at a high level or a lower level, I almost always encourage people to set them at the lower level because it gives you more flexibility. You can always pay off that loan sooner if you need to. Okay, go back to our question from a viewer. Finance just bores me silly. I've tried to use a budget in the past, but usually abandon it within a few weeks. I'm really struggling financially and I don't know where to start. One of the things I'd say in direct response to that question is when I talked to a friend of mine who was divorced, he said that he had kind of a trick that he used to help him do this. He doesn't like budgeting either. Most of us don't because we don't like the control issues. But he said he turned it into a sort of competition. He turned it into a game where every month he sat down and he paid his bills and he made his choices and he saw how much better he was coming each month. So if budgeting bothers you, if you have trouble sticking to a budget or coming up with a budget, I'd challenge you. Try to treat it like a game. Try to treat it like an athletic competition and see if you can't make your situation better month after month. Okay, that's it for cash management this month. I'll talk to you next time. We'll pick up a different subject. Thanks.